Hello everyone, my name is Michael Brooks, the Vice Chairman of the Sullivan County Legislature, and on behalf of our Chairman, Robert Doherty, and the rest of the Sullivan County Legislature, welcome to today's Town Hall. With us today, we have our State Senator, Jen Metzger, and we have our Director of Public Health, Nancy McGraw, and our County Manager, Josh Potosik. Today, we're going to start with our State Senator, Jen Metzger. She has some comments and some thoughts that she'd like to share with us as we battle through this pandemic. Jen, welcome.
Thanks so much, Mr. Vice Chairman, and I want to thank you and the legislature for having me today. I just to start off to give everyone a sense of the district. As you know, I represent all of Sullivan County and also portions of Orange, Ulster, and Delaware counties. It's a big district. First, I just want to recognize the incredible work that the county is doing. The county manager, deputy county manager, Nancy McGraw, the whole Emergency Operations Center team in efforts to protect public health and fight the virus. You've really been doing great work, and the communications with the public has been tremendous. Forums, these town halls are so important to keeping people informed, which is key to protecting public health and safety. This pandemic has upended countless lives and businesses, and many people are struggling from one day to the next. Throughout this very difficult time, I've been focused on helping my constituents in every way that I can. My office has been assisting nearly 1,400 people in getting through the Department of Labor's overwhelmed unemployment insurance system. We've been working to get PPE where it's needed, on providing people, businesses, farmers with information and resources that they need to navigate this challenging time. Thankfully, New York's social distancing and other public health measures taken in the fight against this virus are working, and the state is beginning the reopening process on a regional basis. Since the pandemic began, we've been fully staffed in our office remotely, and we can be reached during regular business hours, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, by calling our Liberty office, which is, the number is 845-292-0215. I really encourage everyone to reach out to me if we can be a resource or help you in any way during this difficult time. I also wanted to let you know that at the start of this pandemic, our office created a COVID-19 guide for our constituents, which we update continuously, and it includes information and resources on everything from the governor's executive orders to what restaurants are open locally and everything in between. And this guide is available on my office's Facebook page and also on the Senate website, which is metzger.nysenate.gov. And that's a resource for you. We've also created another guide that's specifically for farmers and the agricultural community, because I chair the Agriculture Committee in the State Senate. And farming is a huge, just an important key sector of our economy and our communities in Sullivan and throughout the district. We've also been working to keep people informed during this pandemic through an online series that I started called Community Conversations. This has been live streamed on Facebook on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 5 p.m. for the last month. And each episode is on a different topic with a different local expert, and viewers can submit questions and get them answered in real time. Tonight's episode is at 5 p.m. and we're going to be talking about New York's food supply chain and how this pandemic has affected farms and food producers. And we'll be speaking with Marie Ulrich from Cornell Cooperative Extension, Orange County. But we've covered, all of the videos are accessible on Facebook that we've done to date. We've covered some really useful topics for people The first one was on health and medical questions. We spoke with the head of Truro Medical School, Dr. Kenneth Steyer. Another focused on food insecurity in our region and ways for people to help. Another really important topic, mental health awareness and resources that are available to people. This is an incredibly stressful time, and it's just really important that people know what steps they can take for to take care of themselves and what resources are available. We also did an episode on managing your bills, paying your bills, and how to deal with utility issues during this time, because many people are newly unemployed and really struggling. So that's another important resource. This past week, we focused on raising awareness about scams and how to avoid them. There's been, unfortunately, a big uptick in phone and online scams. And there's actually, the state comptroller is working with counties to try to fight these scams. But the big takeaway is, unless you can verify that unsolicited phone calls or online communications, emails, social media, friend requests, that kind of thing, unless you can really verify they're a legitimate source, do not engage or share any personal information. This may feel obvious, but unfortunately many people are falling victim to these scams during this difficult time. We also talked about, we spent an episode talking about education and distance learning right now with 2 Tri-Valley teachers. I have a couple of high school kids myself at home. They're actually distance learning right now. It's definitely been it's a real challenge for kids, for their families, and the teachers had some important advice to offer. And we talked about, the real challenge in our district because of the inequality in access to broadband. We have huge gaps in our district, and this pandemic has really put the spotlight on what a tremendous disadvantage it is if you do not have reliable broadband service. Our kids need it for their education. Those that don't have access to it and are doing remote learning are really at a disadvantage. There are many jobs that, if people could do them at home, if they were connected to the internet, there are jobs that can be done remotely, but if you don't have internet service, you can't do your work. It's important public safety information, forums like this, getting important information to people. I know this has been a major priority of the county, the Sullivan County Legislature, and it's a huge priority of mine in the state Senate. I've introduced 2 bills, 2 pieces of legislation to address these deficiencies. One of the bills recognizes access to reliable internet as a basic right that's necessary for your social and economic well-being, and it directs the Public Service Commission to thoroughly map the availability statewide, develop a plan for addressing those communities that have been adversely impacted by the lack of access. Another one that's really important, I get calls all the time from constituents who are just suffering. They may have internet service, but it's entirely unreliable. And a huge problem is there are no service quality standards for these companies. And they make promises about speeds that they're not keeping. They're not coming and first of all, installing service in a quick enough time, or fixing it if it's out in a quick enough time. So this would set service quality standards for the first time in New York. We're hoping that this silver lining, perhaps, of this crisis is that it will create the momentum to pass legislation like this and bridge this really enormous gap in access to internet service. So I'm going to stop there, but I want to thank you all again for having me here today, And please, I just want to remind everyone to consider our office a resource and give us a call if we can help you in any way during this time.
Okay, thank you, Senator. We will be hearing more from our state senator at the end. We have a few questions specifically for her. And we look forward to working with your office as far as broadband goes. It is definitely something that this legislative body has put as a priority, probably the biggest priority in our term. And, we look at it for us here in Sullivan County as the public safety, radio, we have gaps, cell service, we have gaps, yes, and broadband availability. So we have a few things that we've been working on, and we look forward to working with it, is all I can say, because it is super, super important. Education, healthcare wise, economic development, you name it. So with that being said, we're going to start with our questions, as you normally do, with Nancy. First question: what are the latest figures, confirmed cases, people currently hospitalized, people currently recovered, people who have died, and how many tested? Nancy, welcome today.
Good afternoon, everybody, and I'd like to thank Senator Metzger for joining us. It's good to see you, and thank you for all the information that you provided. Broadband is really important to everyone, especially in these challenging times with kids learning at home and people working from home. So we're going to provide some updated information. We will be probably, because of the launch that we talked about of our interactive dashboard on Monday, probably not be releasing the static dashboard, which is a daily update, but just do this dashboard once a week, I think. And then the interactive dashboard has a daily update, and it's online, and you can go and take a look at that anytime. We're continuing to have, fortunately, a decrease in the number of active cases that we're monitoring. So we're down to 264. I think that's a drop from over 300. That means more people are off of isolation and have recovered. There's 2,270 people who have been released from isolation. We have 879 still in quarantine. Those were people who were exposed to a positive case and are in quarantine and doing daily monitoring for any signs and symptoms. Total tested is 6,153. We have a total of 1,259 confirmed cases to date. And we did find out about one additional death, so that brings us to 29 total deaths so far. Something that I wanted to mention, when you look at the zip code, if you have a chance to go online and look at the zip code list, it's showing really a jump in Monticello, and I want to let you know that that is due to the number of cases that are in the jail. This is the Sullivan County Jail, which saw about over 2 days of testing of inmates, a total of about 32. However, we are working very closely with the jail and State Health Department and the Department of Corrections, and on a daily basis getting reports of how everyone is doing, and they're doing quite well. Very few have any signs or symptoms and are not developing fevers at this point in time. So that number for Monticello, if you subtract the county jail, brings that down to 175. So if we're looking at the overall community, and then we look at Liberty, that has the highest. That includes the 2 nursing homes. So, and these are cumulative cases, keep in mind. So to date, over with the 3 nursing homes, and we'll start to see more as the nursing home initiative, testing initiative rolls out. We may see more cases of the residents. So if you subtract out those 66 cases spread out across the 3 nursing homes who have cases, that brings it down to 190. So If you look at the total overall map, we're looking pretty good. We're not seeing an increase in large numbers. The numbers are getting smaller and going down. We do, however, still need to remain vigilant and tracking this on a daily basis.
Okay, thank you, Nancy. Next question is for Nancy as well. In the revised dashboard with the hospitalizations, which showed a recent increase, does this include all Sullivan County COVID residents hospitalized, or is it specifically CRMC COVID patients, regardless of county of residence? Nancy?
The hospitalizations are seeing a slight increase, and those are the numbers from the Catskill Regional Medical Center, the hospital, and those patients are included in our count regardless of county of residence.
Okay, thank you. Next is for Nancy as well. How are seasonal residents accounted for if they test positive for COVID-19 while in Sullivan County? If thousands of people come here for the summer, yet none of their positive cases count towards Sullivan's official number, couldn't that create a situation where we are falsely meeting our metrics and putting people in danger?
So as we've mentioned in previous town hall meetings, all the patients who test positive are counted based on the location of their primary residence. That is something that's being done statewide and nationally. That is how data is tracked. We don't need to be that concerned about how it's going to impact our regional metrics, because they revolve around hospital utilization, the amount of testing that's happening, and the amount of contact tracing that is being accomplished by each county. So the basic count of cases actually doesn't have really an impact on the metrics that the state is using for reopening.
Okay, our next question is for Josh. I thought that Sullivan County met Governor Cuomo's metrics of 7 out of 7 more than a week ago. Why isn't Sullivan County open for business at Phase 1 for this Memorial Day weekend?
Thank you, Mike, and good afternoon. I'd just like to take a moment to thank Senator Metzger for her work in representing our district and helping the residents of this district, including Sullivan County, and recognizing the importance of broadband in Sullivan County specifically. The metrics coming from the state, so Sullivan County is part of the Mid-Hudson region, the 7 counties of the Mid-Hudson. The state is looking at phased reopening as a region. They're not looking at specific individual county data. Our data gets rolled up into the regional data, and that's 7 metrics are what we need to meet as a region to be able to reopen. So we have never met those metrics as a county as itself, and actually had less metrics met the last data set I saw. We were at 4 out of 7, where right now we're at 5 out of 7 as a region. The 2 metrics that we're still falling a little bit short on are, one is the contact tracing. We need about a little over 1,900 contact tracers in the region. We're actively recruiting county staff. I've reached out to the towns, the college, Cornell Cooperative to see if they have, due to the workload declines, if they have some employees that they could utilize as contact tracers in the short term. But if the state is also hiring contact tracers, so if you're interested and out of work, go to the New York Forward webpage and look up the contact tracing. There's a pretty simple certification process you have to go through, and then they'll interview you. The second metric we're falling and short on, but gaining a lot of progress on, is the 14-day decline in hospitalizations. As of yesterday, we're at day 6 of 14, and that's been trending down for the better part of 2 weeks. The other metric you could meet within that bucket is 5 deaths or less in a region, and we're at 7 as of yesterday. So we're getting very, very close in that metric, and we fully expect, and the governor's office and the region fully expect, the 14-day decline with 8 more days is certainly doable, and we'll have by that time have met the contact tracing metric as well. So I think while everyone wants to open up as soon as possible, I think we're within this week time frame that we could start getting into Phase 1.
Okay, next question is for Josh as well. If the governor allows camps to open, is Sullivan County going to allow it?
Thanks, Mike. We've been told and have been waiting on obviously guidance or outright prohibitions or allowing camps to open across the state. We were originally told that this week there'd be that forthcoming information coming from the state, but if you had a chance to watch the governor's press conference today, they do have guidance on their desk for day camps currently, but they are reviewing and looking at the cases of, unfortunately, the kids that they think are linked to the COVID-19 virus, where they're getting the toxic syndrome disease. So they are overlaying what they're seeing with that outbreak of kids cases with that disease, and looking at the guidance to see if they have to amend that. So while we were expecting guidance this week, we probably won't see that this week and are hopeful to see that next week.
Okay, thanks, Josh. The next question is for Nancy. There is a rumor that the governor's order requiring masks has expired. Is that true?
So that is not true, and I would encourage everyone who needs to look for updates or is wondering if something has changed is to check the website, the health.ny.gov, because on the coronavirus webpage there's also a link to the governor's executive orders, and you can find everything that you need to know there. The face covering requirement was originally issued in Executive Order 202.16 with an expiration date of May 12th. And then Executive Order 202.16 was continued by another Executive Order, 202.29, which remains in effect through June 7th, and we anticipate that this will be renewed before it expires. And this is really important because the only way that we're going to really continue on the downward trend of no additional new cases and preventing hospitalizations is to follow the best public health evidence and science that we have that shows that masks are effective in preventing person-to-person spread. So it protects you, it protects other people, and it's really important when you go out into public to continue to wear a mask and to keep 6 feet or more in social distancing. And this is really important as things start to open up. People are getting outside more, perhaps getting ready to do more takeout in restaurants and go to parks, walking trails and whatnot, and then more will open up as we get ready to open up under phase 1. There is one other thing that I want to just briefly mention, because our office has been getting a lot of phone calls regarding concerns about camps. And we have been preparing, and I believe going to be issuing very soon, some communication regarding the differences between the different types of camps. And we've been working very closely with the district office to get their input. There have been some concerns expressed through the public about certain camp or camps that appear to look like they're opening or that they've received a permit and they're planning on opening. I want to clarify that we have confirmed with the district office in Monticello, which does all of the environmental health inspections of camps, including day camps, children's camps, and temporary residences. Temporary residences are considered in our county bungalow colonies, while in other counties they may be similar to hotels, motels, and other accommodations. So they fall under the same essential business guidance in terms of other accommodations, in terms of temporary residences. So there are currently no day camps or children's camps as of this point in time that have been given the approval to open. Now that could change, of course, as we've discussed. We're waiting for the state to make those decisions with guidance. But the camps, what people may perceive as camps being occupied, are most likely the temporary residences in Sullivan County that are considered bungalow colonies, and they're privately owned, and they do have to be issued a permit, which, permit issuance has not stopped. by the district office. They've continued to process permit applications and issue permits, but that also means that anybody who is operating a temporary residence or any other facility still has to abide by the governor's executive order and all that it entails, as well as be prepared to have a safety plan and all of those things. So I wanted to just alleviate maybe some concerns about that. We are aware about that, and we're working closely with the district office. And the other issue is some clarification on permitted swimming pool, bathing beaches. The district office, if you have any questions about any of that, please contact them at 794-2045, because they issue and regulate and permit all of the facilities that have to do with swimming pools, children's camps, day camps, beaches. They inspect them, and they will tell you what is allowed and what is not currently allowed under the existing executive orders, as well as Sullivan County's current situation under the Phase 1 opening. So I just wanted to provide that information today.
Okay, thank you, Nancy. Okay, we have a few questions for Senator Metzger. First question for the Senator. Is the governor recently changed his policy on nursing homes? What do you think of this change, considering it put a population that was already vulnerable at greater risk and has impacted the nursing home population across New York State? Senator?
Yes, this is a hugely important issue. As you know, the questioner said, this is our absolutely most vulnerable population. We've never seen a situation like this pandemic. Decisions that were made in March and April were made very quickly. There was a scramble to ensure enough ICU beds were available and to make sure we didn't end up with a situation like Italy, where patients were literally in hallways and stairwells of hospitals. But hindsight is 2020, and there are obviously a lot of issues with what was decided over the last 2 months by the executive. I think we absolutely need an investigation that fully assesses what happened, any missteps that have led to almost 6,000 deaths statewide in nursing homes. It's totally unacceptable. The Senate leadership has spoken out about this too and stated publicly that hearings are going to be a priority of the legislature. There have been, some long-standing issues with many nursing homes around the state that, this just worsened things in this crisis. Understaffing, a lot of Medicaid, a lot of nursing home residents are on Medicaid because they've exhausted all of their resources. Something like 80% of them, and Medicaid doesn't really pay enough to cover the cost. That's a huge issue. There were there are other issues with DOE, with the State Department of Health's inspection system. These are all things that need to be really thoroughly investigated. And I also want to just mention that I've co-sponsored legislation that establishes requirements for residential health care facilities during a state disaster emergency involving a disease outbreak. Again, this is an unprecedented situation. There was a lot to learn from this experience, but we absolutely have to prevent the kind of tragedy that we've seen from happening again.
Okay, thank you. Our next question, again for the Senator. What is your plan to help the farms deal with continued stress of this crisis if schools don't open as normal and if restaurants can only have half the people that they normally have?
Yeah, so So first of all, I encourage everyone to watch our community conversations tonight at 5 p.m. On Facebook Live, because we're going to be talking about this very subject with Marie Ulrich from Cornell Cooperative Extension in Orange County. This crisis has affected different farms, different types of farms in different ways. So you can't really lump them all together. Some of the farms that sell directly to customers, the smaller farms have seen a huge increase in sales. As I think many of you may know, the Sullivan, the Catskill Food Hub has just seen an enormous, unprecedented growth in demand for its products, which I think is a wonderful thing, and I'm really hoping that level of demand for purchasing our local farm products is sustained well beyond this crisis, and that perhaps people's buying habits are changing, and they're really focused more on buying this incredible fresh local produce we have. So that is an encouraging trend. Then you have like the dairy industry and our small dairy farmers who have they've already been struggling for years now with depressed prices. And it's really hard for the small farmers and dairy farmers in particular, which is what we have in Sullivan County as well as in other parts of my district. And this pandemic has just, we all saw the horrible, just tragic stories of farmers having to dump their milk, not having markets for their products. And as Senate Agriculture Chair, I've been, dairy is a federal policy issue. We're more limited at the state level, but I've been really focused on pushing our federal representatives to get some relief, and we have gotten some relief, as well as increased relief through existing USDA programs. But we need a lot more. I just had a legislative hearing last week. It was on small businesses, but we did a panel specifically on farm businesses and what changes need to be made at the federal level to better help our farmers. But one initiative that was started during this pandemic, which I really think we need to build on and continue, is the Nourish New York initiative, which it actually uses existing funds, food assistance funds already allocated in the New York State budget, the Department of Health, to purchase dairy, a range of dairy products, as well as other products like apples from farmers, from processors, and get them directly to food pantries to deal with the increase in food insecurity that we've been seeing during this pandemic as well, because so many people are newly out of work. So it's really it's a great program addressing two really important needs of providing markets for our farms during this time, but also providing nourishment to those who are food insecure. And we need to build on those programs. Longer term, this is really, again, like put the spotlight on, vulnerabilities in our food systems. And we really need to be focused on strengthening our regional food systems. The Catskill Food Hub is a great example of the kind of infrastructure we need to support regional food systems, expanding programs, not just to schools, not just farm to schools, but farm to nursing homes, farm to hospitals. We have the markets for these fresh products here, and we need to really build on those. In this state budget that we just passed, I successfully secured funding for a strategic planning process focused specifically on the small dairies in Sullivan County, Delaware County, and Orange County, because the challenges they face are very different from the larger dairies in the north and west part of the state. And it's going to be led by the extensions, and this is a very important step forward in getting the markets proactively in place, connecting our dairy farms with regional markets.
Okay, thank you. And one last question for you, Senator.
Sure.
Sullivan County is a big county filled with small towns and small businesses that are suffering. Why are we waiting for places like Westchester County or Yonkers to open up when they had way more cases of COVID than we did? Why can't we be included in the southern tier instead of the Mid-Hudson region? Senator?
Well, actually, my district actually covers a small portion of the southern tier. Mostly it's the Mid-Hudson, but the Delaware portion of my district is in the southern tier. And, it is really night and day, the difference. I mean, Sullivan County has 18 times as many cases as Delaware County, which had under 100 cases. As Nancy mentioned, as the county executive, county manager mentioned, we're not out of the woods in Sullivan County. We are making enormous progress, certainly, but we're really. We need to meet all of the metrics, here in Sullivan and regionally, and we're getting there. We're getting there. We've met, I thought it was 5 out of 7. We do have to work on the tracers, as the county manager mentioned, but I am as anxious to get us opening up as everyone else. I realize this has been such a hardship on so many people, but we have to do it carefully. We have to do it responsibly. And I've been getting a lot of calls. My office has been getting a lot of calls and communications about people worrying about camps, about people worrying about beaches and the things like that. So clearly a lot of Sullivan residents are also very worried about opening up too quickly. We have to do it in a safe and responsible way. We have to do it as soon as we can, but in a safe and responsible way.
Okay, thank you. And that wraps up our questions for today. I'd like to thank the Senator once again for joining us, as well as our County Manager, Josh Potosik, and our Director of Public Health, Nancy McGraw. And in closing, I just want to give some recognition. This is National EMS Week, and I was fortunate enough to have been invited to the little recognition, I call it night, last night, where the fire companies were out, the different ambulance corps, the EMTs, the policemen, and it was a huge success. It was amazing how many people showed up to show their support and appreciation to this group of folks who work and volunteer in this field. It was, I was, like I said, fortunate enough to be there, and I just wanted to say thank you once again. And with that being said, everyone enjoy your Memorial Day weekend. Be safe. Bye for now.